Well, I thought I did a bit of a bad job on the last video showing this, and I just thought that I might show a little more family connections and how the pyramid family breaks down from the first dynasty on through, and how it collectively is from other people that become nephews, grandnephews, third cousins, and so on. And when dynasties collapse, that it's picked up by the closest relative and the highest rank in their sense of that nobility. So we should start off with Khufu. Khufu is often known as Cheops of the ancient Greeks. He's the second pharaoh of the fourth dynasty. He's the first half of the Old Kingdom period. Khufu is succeeded by his father, Sonephru, which we probably really ought to start with here and make this completion in it. Let's go ahead and go to Sonephru. And Sonephru was famous for making the three different pyramids. You know, he made the pyramid in Maidum. And here's a prying device they have, boring with a hole through it, cut through. But here's the bent pyramid at Dashur, and they often try to say this is a mistake, but it's no mistake. And of course, their sacred geometry that they knew and stuff, this actually goes along with that, and directions that go along with that. And it wasn't some mistake that they got halfway built, like somebody didn't understand angles back then, but that's for another video. And then finally he built the correct pyramid, supposedly the Red Pyramid of Sinephrus. A lot of people connect all three of these with him. And if we look at his successors here and his children, it's pretty telling. During his time, he was able to take massive building projects, which we talk about all three of these pyramids, but he also would have had a secure extension store of labor materials. According to Gilgamesh Andrew, is where the king's foreign policy played a large part. Senefru's conquest into Libya and Nubia served two purposes. The first goal was to establish an extensive labor force, and the second goal was to gain access to the raw materials, special products that were available in those countries, and to kind of do it for free. Sonephru, in the year it says, but it was marked off, and so it's got that lacuna mark. The building of Tua ships of Merwood. These were huge ships of 100 capacity, so they could hold quite a bit. And 60 royal boats of 16 capacity. Raid in the land of the blacks, and the beginning of 7,000, bringing of 7,000 prisoners, men and women, some 20,000 cattle, sheep, and goats, bringing of 40 ships of cedar wood, perhaps laden with cedar wood. Well, cedar wood isn't known from that area, but what types of wood would they have? Also, like to mention that he had a special boat made. Sonephru's ancient cedar wood ship was called Praise of the Two Lands, and it's the first known instance of a ship being referred to by name, they say. But then again, Enki's ship was known of the Stag of the Absu, and I think that predates it possibly of having a name for something, but that's probably for another video also, I would say. But now let's look at his lineage for the sons of Sonephru. Let's see if I can get this in here. His children are Khufu, which we were looking at a moment ago, and they really only have one 3-inch statue of him and other later epitaphs of him, but of course those are much later. Ankaf, which was son of the king's body, the king's vizier, under his his nephew Khafre. He's buried in G750. We're going to look at this complex where all these people are at. It's one thing that I failed to be able to show you in the last video. This famous bust of Ankaf is now in the Boston Museum, and I made the connection here whenever I was doing a video that showed Super Egyptian, one of his videos. where they had taken and put a coat and a hat on this man, and I said, wow, doesn't he look kind of like Elon Musk? From the direction and not a yellowed out photograph of it, it really kind of did. So this is only one of his sons, for we have Ranofer, we have Nefermot, which is the oldest son of Sonephru and husband of Itet. He's the priest of Bastet, hereditary prince, guardian of Nekhen, great one. So each of these ends up being a royalty, and over a part of things, they are trained by the best of the best, a la Alexander the Great, if you will, and because of which they end up having a lot of nobility roles here, by the way. One of the famous ones that we're going to look up here, though, next is Rahotep. And he's got his wife, too. This is one of the ones that has the crystal blue eyes. But this is the son, the king's son of his body, high priest of Re and Heliopolis, buried in Maidum with his wife, Nofret, which we'll also look at, and owner of the famous statues that we're going to look at here. Here's Nofret and her vision. She also has those famous crystal blue eyes. We're also going to look at Ranofer as a separate thing here and show you what he looks like, but that'll just be in a picture thing. And so I want you to remember those names: Rahutep, Ranofer, Nofret. You might have heard of them before, but also Meritites, Hinutsun, and it carries on from there. So this is before, and so looking at Khufu and his reign and the way it comes out, what we have is he is from Sonephru, which we just talked about, right? And he's his father, and he's a famous pharaoh and the builder of those 3 pyramids we talked about. Hedeferes was most possibly his mother, it seems like. The wife of the king Sonephru, and well known for her precious grave goods found at Giza. Meritites was the first wife of Khufu, and remember that name slightly. We'll end up showing you where she is. Hinutsun, second wife of Khufu. She is Khufu. She's mentioned on the famous inventory stela that they have. Hedeferes, wife of Akaf. Eldest brother is Ankaf. His nephew would later become Pharaoh Khafra. I'm going to show you how that works out here through Rahotep and so on. But Nefermot is the half-brother buried at Maidum and owner of the famous mastaba of the geese. We should probably look at these guys here if we can. There's Ankaf, and we saw him. He was the guy that really looks kind of like, perhaps, Elon Musk. The guy going to space right now with SpaceX. So here's a picture and a depiction from that. And of course, men are drawn in red ochre and women are drawn pale. This is nothing new for anybody. All the Mediterranean people, including the Greeks, the Mitanni, the Minoans, Etruscans way over there and stuff, they all use this type of symbology. And he built a giant mastaba, and these mastabas have this in and out niched architecture. People a long time ago said this is exactly the way the Sumerians were built, but it's known as mastaba of the geese because it shows these geese. In fact, I saw a report recently that one of the geese that are shown here are no longer alive. They're extinct, basically, and that the showing of these geese here is showing a type of geese that's no longer extant, right? I believe it's not this one, but the other one that's here on the left, showing you there's a sexual dimorphism between the male and female of it. But we're not here to talk about geese necessarily. But so that's the look at Nefermot. And so we've been there, and we're going to flash back and forth a few times whenever we do this, people. But we also want to talk about Rahotep. And again, he's one of those crystal blue-eyed guys. So this is a brother, elder brother, or half-brother even, owner of the life-size double statue portraying him and his wife, Nofret, displayed in the Egyptian Museum of Cairo still to this day. And so that's somebody that's important, but also you get the family tree. The sons of Khufu also are Jedefra, right? And this becomes the pharaoh here in between. Let's go ahead so I can get a little closer look at him. And if we click his picture, not too difficult to see his phenotype and so on, even though his nose is about half smacked. I believe there's another picture where it shows him as a scribe, or no, Setka inscribing him. And you can also see here that it has Rod Jedefre. I've got a video coming up, I don't know if it'll be before or after this one, where I do come tell you a story about a man named Jed. But like I say, that's for another video. Here's another depiction of him, and it doesn't really have so much a smacked off nose, and you can see the depiction of him. Easily tell. Shows him here in a priest garb, so again, so and that goes through Nefertaris. This is King's Daughter of the Body, and they have a picture over there. Don't have the head with it. Somebody took that. It's in somebody's private collection now, I believe. But we'll go back from this and go back to where we were. And so these names that we've been looking at, Herephetes, Hetepheres, Meritites, Hinutsun, Hetepheres, Ankaf, Nefermat, but remember Rahotep, Jedefre, and of course the son of Khufu was Jedefre, and then it went to Khafre, and Khafre is the one that has the famous eagle behind its head and so on, that we've all seen so many times. So one other thing that ends up being through the gist of actually this person, Rahotep, and his son, which makes somebody else, which we're going to look at, is Hemiunu. We'll look at him again here in a little while when we get down to him, I guess, but this is Hemiunu. This is the architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it's a family thing, and it really gets to be, you know, like a royal family is. Just like we understand it, the ones that in England and all the ones that led up to that, and so on. So when we go back to this again, and we show you the connections, and who's the brother, his brother and sister here, the family tree of Khufu is Rahotep. And so we're going to take a look at Rahotep here. You can see, so he's a prince of Egypt and someone in line, you know, there's crystal blue-eyed statues, right? Shown this in the other video. But I didn't think that I made a real good connection with, and so this is earliest tombs showing here, and the gifts that are given to him. This in front of him is one of their games that they have. They play. Here's a picture of Rahotep and his wife Nofret. Again, women drawn pale, men red ochre. That's nothing new and understandable. These people can easily be seen from that what they are, and of course their crystal blue eyes, which you can take a look at and shows you very much more of these people, and which the scribes are quite often shown because they're drawn, well, they do have the crystal blue eyes that we're talking about, but they also are drawn a little bit more normal and like a real person. And especially at the earliest times, whenever they make these statues like this is supposed to represent the person himself and the statue, and so the Ka and the spirit are supposed to become one and realize the depiction of himself, and by that depiction end up knowing where his body was. It's another good picture of her here. If you catch it right in the light, those blue eyes really glow. It's another statuary of her too, and you can see that she has hair below that wig that's on that almost looks like Rosanna Dana's mop wig back in the day. And one wonders, after we know now of genetics and everything, what color her hair could be. If you just simply look up hair in Wiki, it'll show you a blonde scalp, not just some wig, but a blonde scalp with the skin and scalp that came directly off a mummy's head. And it's the example of curly hair that we keep hearing Herodotus and all those guys talk about. So this is Nofret and Rahotep, and so direct children and direct lineage, right, from these people. So I guess that's pretty important, huh? But the other names that we were supposed to look at were, well, we can look at Khafre real quick and get a good depiction of him. Him here. You can see he's got a forward projecting face somewhat out here, but and it looks like a guy named Scott used to be on my baseball team whenever I was a kid. But this is the depiction here, and of course the depiction that's supposed to be on the Sphinx. There's been all kinds of things said about it. But so direct lineage with these people too, and of course this is the famous funerary Ka statue that they have of him, which wasn't wood, but done incredibly intricate in this diorite that's shown here, and that actually looks like another person that I know. But and again, they were at this time not necessarily making the photoshopped versions of pharaohs, but they were making realistic looking pictures. Then they came up with this ideal, and everybody kind of looked like that, and a mix of what they really looked like. You can tell that effect whenever you go and look through all of the different depictions they show of them, and some look a little more realistic, and all of the others seem to be within little boundaries here, and you can almost watch it go through the different dynasties and new Middle Kingdom, then to Old Kingdom, and watch it change slightly over ways. And of course everybody knows about the famous way that it looks during the Amarna period and tries to make a change there. But there are a couple other times that it does so, and people don't really pay attention to that. So again, I guess one good thing we'll look at is Hemiunu. So we've talked about the people all around the family here, and well, before I go off into him totally, let's see if I can show you one more depiction here of what I'm talking about. I believe it's right here with these four, yes. So right around the Great Pyramids here, there's a complex of sets of tombs, and a lot of people have noted all these mastabas that are in here, and there's a bunch that are in the 200 and 400 and some 500 range. And down at the bottom, let me scoot that over. Fantastic. Down here you can see, and of course where the boats were, this is actually the boat that was built, and then now the boat's actually here built into this other part that they have. But here are the little minor pyramids that you always see out in front of there, and these are for those people that we just talked about, that I told you to remember, of the women and the wives of the king, so on. And Hemiunu's tomb is supposed to be this one right here. And all these other ones we're talking about are all in this mastaba, because it's a royal family collection going with the pyramids that go with this. Yeah, all buried here together. You can look at them individually if you want. I've actually done some pictures showing some of that. But, and so if we wanted it, there's another depiction here too in ivory of Sonephru, or of Khufu, by the way, and showing him here with a wig type that he has going on. And at this time they don't have the full crown situation. It's just actually an orus, or the cobra that you know of bent here, that third eye on the forehead type thing, in a band, right? But this is made out of ivory, and then it's been stained with red ochre and then just turned all dark or whatever. But it's made in ivory. It says it right there. Head of Khufu, ivory. This is in the Altes Museum, by the way. So, you know, Khufu, the Great Pyramids, and we're looking at the family that's all attached to that. And I don't want to read all this to you people. You know, the Palermo stone and so on, and they talk about this, and some of this is quite revealing here too, and I could pick out pieces of it. But going back to this idea, we've already shown you all of those ones leading down into it, and again, some of those tombs that are up there have Hetepheres and Meritites right here in that tomb. She's right there. They tell you she's probably the queen mentioned in G7650. We could go back and look at that, but if all those are sevens down there, and that's where she was. So I guess the next person to look at, because we are talking about who built the pyramids pretty much, would be to come down here and take a look at Hemiunu again a little bit closer, because he's the architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza itself. And his eyes were damaged, so it's believed that he had the crystal blue eyes, because it tells you they were stolen from him for a reason. And whenever they redid that, they just made them the regular eyes of the other people. You can see he's got a little bit of a double chin. A lot of people don't mistake the Greek looks of him. A lot of people have turned around and tried to say this was from the Greek period or things like that because of his looks. But make no mistake about it, this is Hemiunu, and he's the architect of the Great Pyramid in Giza. They show him with some man boobs and something a little bit naturally, and somebody said, but I don't know whether it's true or not, that at one time he would have had a tablet sitting right here, and on the tablet would have been a geometric design pictograph of the Great Pyramid, like some geometric lines and so on. They show his legs a little fat too, and feet a little fat and whatever, and there's also hieroglyphics all around here under his feet, but they're covered up with a plexiglass now. And this is in the Hildesheim Museum. It's in Germany. Hieroglyphics at the feet of Hemiunu. So that's pretty much how you pronounce it too. People say Hemiunu and things like that. Hemiunu, it looks like Hemiunu is the way it should be pronounced. So Hemiunu was the son of Prince Nefermot and his wife Itet, so he is the grandson of Sonephru, the guy we started all this off with, right? Grandson of the Great Pyramid builder, and relative of Khufu, of course, as we talked about, the Old Kingdom king. Hemiunu had 3 sisters and many brothers, and I think we'll take a look at that here in just a second. His tomb is described as a hereditary prince, count, sealer of the king of Lower Egypt, on a statue found in Serdab. Now it's also in Hildesheim Museum. That's on his feet right there. Hemiunu is given the title King's Son of his Body. So he was directly royal prince, chief justice, and vizier, greatest of the 5 of the House of Thoth. Yeah, they've only given that to a few people and stuff. It's one of the titles that they have rarely given out, but it's something of greatness. So it lies to Khufu's tomb pyramid that they tell you about, and it's in Mastaba G40, marked as dates of Khufu's reign, and his statue was walled up, and they say the robbers gouged out the statue's eyes of the precious inlaid eyes and gold castings that were around it, but all the other ones were actually copper around them, and most of them corroded, like I showed in the other video. So for him to have been gold, that's maybe why they tried to steal him out of that, and or the crystals of which. But so that's pretty neat. So now we're going to look at the granddaughter of Khufu again, which I did in the last video here. I literally go to DuckDuckGo and I type in granddaughter of Khufu, and it'll go to Egypt today, and you can see that they have this exhibit that's about to show here. And I didn't go there last time, I just showed it. But guess, blonde-haired guy here, and she's a redhead. We'll have another look at that in a closer look. It's better than that fuzzy picture right there here shortly. But you can see her here, and this is organizing a virtual visit to the tomb of King Khufu's granddaughter, and even her children, which are right here behind her. showing you this effect. And again, men are red ochre, females are drawn pale, but he's a blonde, she's a redhead, showing you that connection. So making a virtual tour, which I thought I'd show you, that's pretty neat that they're about to make something that you can actually go through like that. But let's show you another connection here. I was trying to find the same thing that I showed you before, and whenever I did, I got kind of lost, and I ended up showing you this lineage that's right here, but now I've clarified that a little bit better for y'all, right? Showed you the reserve heads. In fact, that's what we probably look at next, are all these princes that are reserve heads, one of which became a pharaoh here. So you can, these are so well known, you can usually just type in reserve heads. You don't have to type in Egypt or anything, and you just type in reserve heads and it's going to be what shows up. And so you can see all these representations here of these reserve heads, right? There's a female there on the right, male, male. We went through this yesterday. There's another one up here that there's that same female. There's another female that's been thought in there. Here it is right here. But in the last representation I showed you, she was really contrasted out in the picture. It's a flash. There's a real good picture of some of the other ones. And so these are the princes of the earliest dynasties, right? And one of those has become actually the pharaoh that we know of as Khafre. Now, if you want to say, when did this type of phenotype come in? It looks like they brought cattle here in the first place. That's the whole point of the situation. They know at least over 7,000 BC, whenever that first comes in grains. And there's a few waves, and then a wave of Sumerians that comes through there that I've done other videos about. And really, they've changed a couple of the wiki articles about it, and I could even do another one. It's funny, what I was saying that wasn't in the wiki articles, and I showed you in the other videos, is now in the wiki articles. Isn't that amazing? If I just type in ginger blonde Egypt, or maybe I ought to add Gibelline because it is pre-dynastic, we'll end up seeing Ginger the blonde pre-dynastic Gibelline mummy. And he's found to be stabbed in his shoulder right about here, and that punctured through his lungs, and that's why he's pretty much gone, covered in red ochre and so on. But if you get a closer look at him, you can actually see the blonde hair and curls that are there, and that's why they call him Ginger. Well, we remember Ginger as being a bright redhead, but funny, here you go, there's one of my videos. It looks like he's holding a thumbs up, although one of his fingers has been popped up, and so I gave him a glowing blue eye and thumbs up, click me. So that reminds me, hey guys, check and make sure that you have your bell and notifications on and everything, because if you don't have it on and you don't have every notification on like they have up there listed, you seem to never get it. Here's Ramses the red head. Here's another red head here, person here. They try to write it off and say things about him. Of course, Ramses and all of these others that are shown here that are blondes and stuff, one of which is the great-grandparents of King Tut, or grandparents of Akhenaten, that's been shown, and their genetics have been shown out as G2 and then K for her, and then after that in Tutankhamun's range were R1b, 1b, and they've even pinpointed it to RM269. So here's one of those crystal blue-eyed statues I show. This is Mitri, and so this comes under one of those guys that was a prince that didn't get to be the pharaoh, but what did he get? He got a cush job, and they passed it from father to son, and here's Mitri, which comes after that. So it would have been the grandson of someone we talked about recently, and I believe they've tracked down which one too. You can start going to each one of those and actually pinpoint, and they'll say, well, his sons were this, that, and the other, and believed to have been Mitri. Well, that's him. Here's that picture that we talked about before, and you can see if, well, weirdly, if I And zoomed in like this, you can make it out to where she just has yellow hair with red lines on it. Because they're trying not to make her a redhead. They're trying not to make her a blonde. She kind of apparently had strawberry blondish hair, and they want to give it that golden appearance. So you can see the lines when you're extremely close to it. But if you zoom out, all of a sudden it becomes strawberry blonde with a sun gleam across the front of it and stuff. A lot of people said it's just amazing. And that is the granddaughter of Khufu, right? But there's all kinds of red-headed mummies that we've been able to find out of there and stuff, and showing redheads out of here. In fact, this lady did big tests onto it and said, Natron doesn't change hair no matter what type she tested, all types of human hair, that it didn't change it one single shade whatsoever. And so these are their actual hairs. And that makes sense, because there are mummies found with black hair, brown hair, auburn, blonde, red, dark red, like what's on the walls here on one of the tombs, but also even blonde like her hair, and the Yuyu seem to be a little bit more platinum blonde than that, and people have made all these assumptions out of it, but something like that's what Pharaoh Ramses would have looked somewhat like, but a lot of times they try to blend his looks. So pretty interesting. And of course, if I just type in blue-eyed Egyptians, that was Ginger the pre-dynastic mummy, right? But there are all these statues, and including Nefertiti herself, which has one missing eye, but this one is blue, and if you catch it right, which this photo has been able to do, you can definitely see her phenotype, but also those blue eyes that are with this. This was the seated scribe that's here. There's Maitri again. In fact, there's all of these different ones. Copper, there's Nofret, Rahotep, all these different scribes that are here that have these blue eyes. In fact, here are Nakata sculptures from the pre-dynastic, which I think this is one of my videos again, showing these gold forged statues that even back then they were making with blue eyes. There's Maitri from a distance. So there's the seated scribe real close. Even some of these coffins were done with blue eyes. And they found out now that that glows under that blue light that shows up actinic lights, or whenever you go to like Six Flags or someplace, or out clubbing, how they put a stamp on you don't really see, but you stick it under the light, it glows. Those eyes do that glowing. There's copper right there. And so, but not only in Egypt here, but also in Sumeria, but all around the world there are blue-eyed statues, including ones of Buddha that are still extant. And here shows the dynastic Egyptians, as we were talking about before, and the ones that actually built the pyramids. So I guess that would take it out of question very much. And so again, just as important, if not more important, are the guys that here through their schooling, which the Pharaoh was too busy doing everything that he had to do, are these people that came up with this sacred geometry. I have videos showing this, and there are other people that show that they actually captured the size of the world in it. But because of the size, people wonder why the pyramid's so big. It seems like they could have made the thing that was about 8.5 foot tall, but it would have been real hard to shove all in one thing, and it wouldn't have had its chambers at all, or the next size up, because of its declination of 432,000. Actually ends up being 432 times bigger than that, and that's the Great Pyramid itself. But in that sizing that it gets, the measurements itself are declinations that we still have for longitude and latitude today, capturing another sign of that. It's quite amazing, and it goes threefold, fourfold. And so that's one reason that they made this sacred structure, and people have wonders about just it being a pile of rocks, much less that it had all these functions that go along with it, concepts, higher mathematics and geometry. It's amazing when you look back into it and people think it just showed up like popcorn, but that's not true. Been trying to show you that in the last couple of years in my videos too. In fact, with the finding of Göbekli Tepe, we can reveal where a lot of this came from, and that wasn't nothing new right there. It comes from before a little bit. Anyhow, the architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I've shown you a different connection to their families, and was finally able to show you that file that shows you who's connected to who, and then all those mastabas that are right there out in front of the pyramids. Who are they? Those are the nephews and grandnephews, and Cheops, Sonephru, and how they filtered down through time, being the majority of what led ancient Egypt. It was going along hot too until the first intermediate period, which I've shown before. They figured out now was caused by a great volcano and caused a lot of droughts and so on, but that's in another video. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think downstairs. Peace.